The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRCMedia, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
This week on FRCMedia News, the city releases a report on its future prospects to increase tourism, and WSAR Radio celebrates a special birthday. All this and more coming up. It's Thursday, July 20th, 2023. This is FRCMedia News. I'm Keith Tebow. Mayor Paul Coogan, Viva Fall River, and UMass Dartmouth last week released the initial findings of a report on tourism in Fall River. The 44-page document was prepared by UMass Dartmouth's Charlton College of Business and was part of the city's over $600,000 commitment to Viva Fall River to research strategies to increase tourism within the city. The basis of the report was the collection of visitor data from 3 anchor locations: Battleship Cove, the Narrow Center for the Arts, and the Lizzie Borden House. Viva Fall River Executive Director Patty Rigo says the data collected supported assumptions that visitors spend money in local restaurants and retail stores. It also provided insight into how the city can expand opportunities during non-traditional tourism season and events.
The culinary culture of the city, certainly looking at some of the restaurant data and seeing that that's something that people are not only interested in, but that they are actually actively coming to the city for. And other things that, there were a couple other things that gave us pause, and now we're able to adjust some of those strategies and see how we can move forward. Specifically, I'm glad that you mentioned seasonality, John, because we are already thinking about, the holiday season and how do we bring visitors in during the colder months, using different assets. Maybe not our waterfront because that's very seasonal, but how do we, highlight some of the other things like our historical tourism, and then gearing up for next year, really wanting to do a little bit more research and to do a little bit more, get a little more insight on recreational tourism. How do people even know about some of our more natural assets? And so we have a lot of room to grow, and I think that's what I took out of the research report, and it's given us some, assurance to our assumptions, which is what you need when you want to get grants, which is what you need when you want to move forward. Assumptions are nice, but data is definitely better.
Dr. John Williams, Dean of the Charlton College of Business at UMass Dartmouth, says the city is ripe for tourism growth and it should begin looking at recruiting more hotels and restaurants.
When you look at cities that start to really burgeon and really take place in tourism, those are it. They've looked at their hotels and they've looked at their restaurants, and restaurants can really do it. You happen to have some great restaurateurs in the area, so gauging on whether they want to add more into that, but talking to a few of the restaurateurs, here it is. They welcome other restaurants because that's how you build a restaurant mecca as a city. You have to have a critical mass of restaurants in order to be a heavy attraction.
To no one's surprise, most of the visitors to the city drive an hour or less to Fall River. Dr. Williams says what's impressive is that the city does also have an international base.
2.3% of all the visitors to Fall River are international visitors. 47% of those come from Canada. Well, Canada's right there, so you can market easily to that. So I said 2.3%, and you probably think, you're used to that, and oh, that's a small figure. When you think about it, that's 2.3 people per 100. It's a sizable figure. So to put it into perspective, when you look across the nation, and all of those that really monitor their tourism, when you hit 4%, you're dancing out in the street. You go wild. 4%, that's 4 people of 100. you're already at 2.3. That is amazing. So that's a market with a little bit of capitalizing on it. You can groom that market to become something great.
Ms. Rigo says the city is currently advertising Fall River's tourism opportunities in Boston and as far away as the Mid-Atlantic states.
It's nice that we have things that there are obviously initiatives that are geared more toward the greater Fall River area or maybe even southeastern Massachusetts, Rhode Island. But there are also opportunities that extend beyond that, and the research showed us some of those pockets either in other areas of the Commonwealth or even in such places as Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey. Those have actually shown us some areas of activity. So obviously that's not, we want to go for the things that we have closer to us, but as we move ahead, there'll be more opportunities. And so I think that's something also that the research was able to help me kind of pinpoint where we should also be looking toward in the future.
Mayor Coogan says the report is just the foundation of what will eventually become a long-term tourism strategy. The parties will continue to gather visitor data and will release more from its study in the coming weeks. The city of Fall River is making strides in replacing the 3,000 or so lead service water lines that run from the street to private property owners. Director of Community Utilities Paul Furland says the remediation work comes at no cost to the property owner and is being paid for by federal, state, and local grants and loans.
So far this year, we've replaced almost 100 lead services so far this calendar year. We're slated before the end of the calendar year to replace over 500 of them with the contractors and contracts that we have in place. And then next year, right now, we're looking to start the design of next year's contract, which will be over 700 lead services that will be replacing in the city next year. Initially, our estimates back a year ago when we started going through this was $23 million. We've been able to secure so far about $18.5 million in grant funding or low interest loans. But I'm hoping that we'll be able to make it through. There may be, as we go out a couple more years, there may be some additional low interest loans that we will need to finish up the whole entire lead service removal project throughout the city.
The city is also in the process of conducting a government-mandated inventory of all water infrastructure connections from the street to the approximately 22,000 properties in Fall River. Most of the properties have been accounted for, with questions remaining on approximately 8,000.
We need to make up a full material list inventory of all the services that we have throughout the city. So all of our 22,000 customers that are serviced, we need to know what the full material makeup is, whether it's plastic, whether it's copper, whether it's steel, of the service line coming in. We need to know that both on the street side, which is from the water main to the curb stop, which is near the property line, or from that curb stop all the way into the meter. So we need to know both sides what the makeup is of that material. So we're starting to go out and do inspections of people's homes. This also helps us with the lead service to be able to verify that somebody has a lead service or not. So it's kind of in conjunction.
Residents may soon be visited by city officials or contractors seeking to gather the material inventory, or they'll have the option to supply the information themselves. All the information and work being requested is being done free of charge to the property owner.
We're going to be starting with a mailing probably within the next month. All the residents that are expected that need to identify the service material will get a mailing. That mailing will give you specific instructions either to call to schedule an appointment for an in-home inspection. There'll also be tools on there where a homeowner could do their own inspection through Protect Your Tap, which is an EPA-based website, which walks a homeowner through the steps to be able to identify their service material. There's also a smart sheet that's available from Massachusetts DEP, which again walks you through the steps on how to identify what your material service is. That'll help us be able to fill in some of those blanks that we have within our inventory.
Mr. Furlan says the city needs to collect the data on infrastructure material by the end of 2024. The Fall River City Council this week received an update from the Coogan administration on efforts to bolster the staffing levels within the police department. City Administrator Seth Aiken says despite the recent deployment of new officers who recently completed the police academy, the department is still below full capacity.
We are still short. I think at the time we were 22 officers down. We're still 18 officers down. That is in large part attributable to the attrition of retirement, with a few officers that have left for disciplinary reasons. At least in 2023, so in the last 7 months, there have been no officers that have left voluntarily. So I think that's a good thing and that's a change. In the last 2 years prior to that, there were 6 officers that left voluntarily, not retired, not disciplined, but just left either to go to other smaller police departments or to change professions entirely. One, I believe, left to become a photographer. And so we have not lost any officers due to voluntary attrition. I think in the next 6 months, you're going to see that manpower issue change somewhat. That takes a little bit of time because you're putting people through the academy. That's a multi-month process. And then after that, there's a process for the field training officer for then the officers to hit the street. So I think there's probably a year before we actually see a significant manpower change. In terms of availability, we're already seeing an effect.
We officially know now who will be on Fall River's election ballot. All candidates who have certified nomination papers filed them in the race for mayor, city council, and school committee before this week's deadline. We now know there will be a preliminary election for mayor and city council. There are 3 candidates on the ballot for mayor. They are incumbent Paul Coogan, former Mayor Sam Sutter, and 2021 candidate Michael Vandal. For the city council, 19 candidates filed papers. 8 are incumbents: Linda Pereira, Brad Kilby, Andrew Raposo, Michelle Dion, Joe Camara, Laura Washington, Pam LaLiberty, and Sean Kadim. Councilor Leo Pelletier has announced that he will not seek re-election. Also filing papers are former Councilor Cliff Ponte, current school committee member and former Councilor Paul Hart, along with Bob Pearson, Jordan James Sylvia, Gabriel Amaral, Gloria Sadler, Joseph Salvador, Ricky Tiff, Paulo Amaral, Joshua Tixera, and Alexander Silva. Only 10 candidates filed nomination papers for school committee, meaning all candidates will advance to the November municipal election. The 5 remaining incumbents will be on the ballot: Shelley Pereira, Sarah Rodrigues, Bobby Bailey, Mimi Larrabee, and Kevin Aguiar. Challengers include Colin Dias, Charles Chase, Warren Alves, Renee Brown, and former school committee member Tom Corey. The order of the candidates on the September 19th election ballot will be determined by a drawing at an Elections Commission meeting next Tuesday. We'll have that update on next week's show. We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
Here are some job descriptions on the latest hot jobs list from the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center. Customer Care Representative. Matuk, located at 925 Airport Road, is looking for a full-time customer care representative, responsible for organizing and responding to customer inquiries and requests. Job number 193-45421. Social Worker. Family Service Association, located at 151 Rock Street, is seeking a part-time social worker to provide case management services and monitor the mental health status to program participants. Job number 193-44286. Registered Nurse. St. Anne's Hospital, located at 795 Middle Street, is looking for a part-time registered nurse, responsible for providing direct patient care based on the nursing process within assigned work periods. Job number 193-46228. Bread Baker. The Pink Bean Coffee, located at 85 Purchase Street, is looking for a full-time bread baker. For more information, call 508-567-3336. Bristol Community College, located at 777 Ellsbury Street, has an immediate need for the following full and part-time positions: professional tutor in the Writing Center. Job number 193-35599. Adjunct Faculty, Art and Design Foundations. Job number 193-35591. For more information about these or other positions, visit Mass Hire JobQuest at jobquest.dcs.eol.mass.gov or call the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Welcome back. A Fall River Media institution is celebrating a special birthday this year. WSAR Radio has been on the air serving the community for 100 years.
1923 seems to be the definitive year, someone could argue. And it started, if I'm not mistaken, with 10 watts of power, and then it eventually crept into the 40s. And there wasn't a whole lot going on because FCC even was not part of the game at some point. And then thank God they came into play only because they was able to get some regulations going. I think the formats originally started, it was music, it was news, sports, and that happened early on for a long time. And then come the 60s, talk becomes something. And I think talk started, if I remember right, at a station called WMEX in Boston, with a guy by the name, I think Jerry, you know the name Jerry Williams, and I think that's where it started. And then Whale started doing talk with a guy by the name of Joe Mansfield. He did the first talk station in this area, did it from the Venus. How about that? And it was one-way talk, which gave you the opportunity to kind of mess around with the callers. I mean, they're taking your word that you're repeating exactly what the caller is saying. And in some cases, I'm sure some people had a good time with that.
Station General Manager Susan Netter says even though the media landscape has changed, cities like Fall River benefit from having a vibrant local news source.
Every community, every town or city needs local resource. So the beautiful thing about WSAR is that it's live and local, and it's probably one of the 3 oldest locally owned radio stations in the whole United States. So I don't necessarily feel like the radio station must provide a platform for discourse. No, I don't think so. I think there's enough discourse in our country. I think the radio station is important because it's here for news and information that the local people need and want.
WSAR remains an outlier in the world of radio, where large corporations own a majority of stations and are always looking at ways to cut costs at the expense of local programming. For the last 30 years, WSAR has been owned by local community business leaders Robert and James Karam.
Jimmy and I started making money in the city, and a guy from New York owned the station. He had bought it, and he had a woman on the station who every day just condemned the city day after day after day. That's what they thought was going to be good for listeners. And we came to a conclusion, he and I, guys like us were, and I'm not being a hero, we're doing what we're doing to improve the city, and we got these out-of-towners who bought the station. So we actually put in a person in between us to go see him, and he was probably thinking the same thing. He wasn't making any money. We were thinking we wanted to just get rid of him, and we bought them out. What we wanted to do was have the station be important to people on. They get up for breakfast, what's going on in the city. They're going to bed at night, the city's safe, or their children are safe, or the schools are safe. And I think we delivered on that. And that's all we were interested in.
Netter says without local ownership, it's very likely WSAR would not be in the position of a valued community leader.
The fact that they are local, they are real flesh and blood individuals that you can pass by at the restaurant having lunch or breakfast any given day of the week. The relationships that they have in the business community. All of that is helpful. And I think that it lends, that in itself lends to something that nobody else has. Nobody else in the media or entertainment industry in our market has what that lends to, which is the credibility that this radio station has.
Mr. Karam says media outlets like WSAR are particularly impactful during times of local emergencies.
I remember there was a blizzard. People were walking up and down the streets in the snow, and we're out there, and Jimmy's in his car, and I'm in my car, and we're going out and feeding the police, and we're whatever, trying to keep people healthy. It was not about selling ads at the time, and then throwing it on the radio station so people would know what's going to happen. That wouldn't happen in a large school, not because of bad people, but the bigger your audience is, the less you can be thinking about a particular community or what have you. And so we were able to say the heck, because he's a class act, and other people that were on the station, that, all right, whether it's that time or normal times, we work for the city here.
For 56 of WSAR's 100 years, Mary Murphy has held many a supporting role at the station, currently serving as its operations manager.
When I first started here, it was a rock and roll station, top 40, okay? So there were a lot of different people and a number of different people that came from California and were in the business at that time, and then came over here because it was something new and interesting. And back then it was just pretty much AM. FM was, elevator music, So, yeah, there've been a lot of different names. Somebody offhand, just so many. One of them was Johnny Dock, if you remember the name Johnny Dock at all. He was here for a while, And there were people from Providence that started here and then went to Providence. Started here, went to New Bedford. Started here, went up north.
In 2025, Happy Heck will celebrate a milestone of his own, 60 years in the radio business.
I still enjoy getting up in the morning. It's nice and easy. I don't, it's and then I do the show, and I have people. Carol Valacourt, and before there was Joanne Bentley who spent some time, and before that Dr. Nancy Duncan spent some time in the morning. A lot of that got, put to the side because of the pandemic. Probably the biggest story of our time, I think. When I went to a St. Michael's festival this past weekend. I met some people there I had never met before. One guy says, I've been listening to you for 50 years. How do you like that? 50 years. And he said, well, I want to hear the news. I want to hear the weather. I want to hear the sports. I like some of the stuff you do with your weather guy. And I love, I love how you guys approach everything. And so this is a guy who's been around like 50 years.
The station will kick off its 100th birthday celebration this Saturday from noon to 3 p.m. at the gates of the city. Heck will broadcast live. There'll be live musical entertainment and, of course, a birthday cake. As it embarks on its next century serving Fall River, Heck says for now the formula will remain the same.
Over the years, this station has done so much stuff. It's been unbelievable. And we've got connections with probably every organization, community organization, because we've done something. And we not only do it on the radio. A lot of us just do it personally because we volunteer. A lot of us do, over the years, I can't think of how many places I've been to, how many people I've met. And it feels good. That's why we do it, because it's a good thing. It's a good thing to get involved. It's a good thing to go ahead and serve people, and and I think it's a responsibility of a radio station to do that, to go ahead and serve the community.
The station says it will celebrate its birthday through the end of the year with special audience contests and on-air clips of some of the news and community events it's covered throughout the years. We will wrap up this edition of FRC Media News right after this.
Welcome to Hot Dogs and Cool Cats. Today we have Skinny Marie. She is 8 years old. She is very thin right now. She is gaining weight. She does have hyperthyroidism. She is on methimazole 5 milligrams twice a day. Very affordable medication. It's very cheap. She's starting to put weight on, and her fur is starting to come back in. She is getting better. She just needs that medication twice a day for the rest of her life. But other than that, she's healthy, and she is a love bug. She loves attention, as you can see. She doesn't mind being held. just an all-around good girl. She would, you know, love a home to just spend her retirement years in and curl up with somebody and love on somebody and have all that love and attention for her. So if you'd like to meet Miss Skinny Marie, come on down to Forever Paws, 300 Linwood Street, Fall River, Mass.
Today we have Zacho. Zacho, as you can probably tell, is a big boy. He is almost 3 years old, about 2 years and 11 months we have him. He is a cane corso or mastiff, if it makes it easier for you. He is very good with everybody, very gentle even with his play. He is a big dude, as you can probably tell from the camera, very big head. But he's actually very gentle. He's a gentle giant, as you could call him. We are asking for him to move into a home that has children 12 or older, just bigger kids. Zacho here, he is over 100 pounds. He's 108 pounds and some odd ounces, so he is a big dude. With him in his size, you will have to own your own home as well. So if you'd like to meet Zacho, you can come down to 300 Linwood Street in Fall River, Massachusetts at Forever Paws Animal Shelter.
That's all for this edition of FRC Media News. Please visit our website at frmedia.org for all the latest news and local information. FRC Media News airs Thursdays at 6 p.m. and Fridays at 5:30 p.m. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next Thursday.